Sandy, welcome to my kitchen, and today we are talking about salmon. We're cooking with Alaskan wild-caught salmon. You can play around with the different types of salmon. I love the nutritional value of salmon. It's high in omega-3 fatty acids, which is a good fat for your heart compared to some of our other animal proteins that have a high saturated fat content. Think of saturated fat as anything that's solid at room temperature. And any of the monounsaturated and polyunsaturated are going to be liquid at room temperature. With salmon, when you're searching for the perfect salmon, there's a lot of different varieties of salmon. There's sockeye salmon, there's Chinook salmon, etc. So when you're doing that, play around with the type of salmon you like. They have a different flavor profile and a texture depending on the type of salmon. Today, again, using just a wild-caught Alaskan salmon, you can go farm-raised or you can go wild-caught. If you do go farm-raised, I tend to go towards the more sustainably farm-raised salmon just for the environmental impact. And then also when you're looking at types of salmon, farm-raised versus wild-caught, obviously farm-raised, they're adding into their food what is going to be in their flesh that you're eating, whereas wild-caught, they're getting all of those nutrients from the wild. So the color is going to be a lot different. You're going to have a fleshy pink salmon fillet, where opposed to farm-raised, you're not going to get as pink. It's going to be more of an orangey color, depending on what their diet was. So just a little bit of a knowledge background for you on salmon. Anyway, back to our business of making salmon burgers. So these salmon burgers are one of my favorites, especially as in the warmer months, because I can grill them, I can saute them, I can cook them in the oven, depending on what the temperature is outside. And I just love the flavor profile here. I'm playing around with traditional flavors of a salmon burger. Again, use your flavors that you have in your house. If you just have certain herbs and you don't have these particular ones, that's totally okay. Let's get started. I've cut my fresh salmon fillets into kind of just chunks here because I'm going to put it all in the food processor. And the salmon, again, was wild-caught salmon, and I just kind of took the skins off and I'm ready to go for this. So I'm adding it to my food processor. Here. And then to this, I'm going to add, I have one medium-sized onion that I just kind of diced. If you don't like onion, you don't have to use the onion. It's totally fine. I just like to add the flavor in there. I've tried it with fennel too. I like fennel in there, a little licoricey. I have dill. Oh, I love dill. Dill and fish go well together. Again, if you have basil, cilantro, any of those, you can play around with it. I'm adding about a half a teaspoon of salt. You can add more towards the end if you want. I have some lemon, egg, pepper. This is my smoked pepper, which if you haven't been watching my videos, it's my favorite. You can get it at the grocery store in your herb aisle. It's just smoked peppercorns, and it adds a nice little hint of that smokiness to it, which is delicious. So about a half a teaspoon in there. I have Dijon mustard, which is one of my favorite mustards. Again, if you just have grain mustard and not Dijon, that's fine. It's about a tablespoon of Dijon mustard. Adding one whole egg to this. I crack it in the bowl so I don't get any shells in there. Okay, and now we need a binder, right? Typically you use breadcrumbs of some sort. Today I'm playing around with oats because I don't have any breadcrumbs in my pantry, so I'm just using oatmeal. I know, crazy, right? But you can use oatmeal. Same amount, it's fine. So this is about a half a cup of oatmeal. Then I have lemon, because why not? I love lemon in my seafood. So I'm going to zest the lemon, probably, I don't know, about half of the lemon. I don't want a ton of zest. I'm not a huge zest fan. Again, when you're zesting, I'm holding the zester upside down so it catches the zest on top. And when you're going to zest a lemon or citrus, you don't want to go past the white. As soon as you hit that white, stop on that side and go on another one, because that is bitter. My timer is ending for, I'm making millet too to go with this, so follow my millet recipe as well. All right, so doing this. Again, really quick, I love the smell of lemon too. Something about citrus adds just a little freshness to it and earthiness. All right, so my lemon has been zested. I'm gonna cut it in half, and I want the zest of this entire lemon. I'm holding it cut side up to catch all of those seeds, so I don't have to worry about the seeds getting into anything. So that's 1/2, and then 2/2 here. You can add lime juice too if you don't like the lemon juice, it's fine. All right, wipe my hands off a little bit before we pulse this. Okay. Get rid of some stuff so you can see me. Okay. Now I'm going to, now this is all done, I'm also adding 1 tablespoon of olive oil into this. All right, here goes nothing. Putting the lid on, I just have my blade on. You can just chop this up really fine to your salmon before you do this and combine everything. That's fine too if you don't have a food processor. Or if you have a meat grinder, you can put it through a meat grinder. I'm gonna pulse this until it comes together. You don't want it to be baby food, so you don't want to pulse it too much. You want to know you're getting salmon in there. All right, and that's all I'm doing here. Scraping down the sides. I'm going to remove the blade, and then I'm going to scoop these into our patties. And the longer it sits, the more moisture that oatmeal is going to absorb. So you can set this overnight in your fridge too, it's fine to do ahead of time. I'll freeze these too. I'll make these into burgers and I'll freeze them if you're not going to cook it right away. All right. So now, all I'm going to do, take this off, and I have a scoop. I just like to make them uniform, so I have a scoop, and I do about 1 scoop per kind of patty here. Maybe I'll do 2 scoops per patty today. And that's it. And all we're gonna do is just keep forming our patties. We're going to freeze these for about 20 minutes before we cook them off, just to make sure they're nice and solid, and then we're gonna sear them in a pan. I'm gonna do pan seared today, although you could freeze them, you could grill them if you wanted to do that as well. I also finished them in the oven. I've done oven roasted as well before. Totally up to you. And this should make about 7 to 8 patties depending on what size you're doing. Looks like I might get 8 out of this, which is good. Which means I'll have leftovers. Just gonna scrape the rest of this out. All right, so now our salmon burgers are ready to go in the freezer. So you're gonna freeze them for 15 minutes, and then we're gonna get our pan ready and nice and hot and sear these off. So we're back, and our burgers have been freezing for about 15 minutes. Now it's time to sear them off. I've also preheated my oven to 350, so that way I can finish them in the oven as well, and also keep them warm. So I have in my pan, which is a non-stick pan, by the way. You can use cast iron too. I love to use cast iron as well. And I have about a tablespoon of olive oil in there, and it's on medium-high heat. So I'm just waiting for that to heat up, which is about there, because you don't want it to sit in the oil and soak up the oil. You want it to just start to sear and create that crisp crust that we love on all of our burgers and crab cakes and all that great stuff. So I'm gonna pull this up. I think we're just about there, almost. I gotta give it another minute, right? Because I don't want it to sit there. I'm gonna turn it up. And then I can see all the dill specks in here, which is pretty cool. I also just finished my millet, which you can find this recipe in another video I did. Just look for millet pilaf, which I'm gonna serve with my salmon burgers And I'm going to top it with a little bit of parsley and some lemon juice for a finished product. All right, I can smell my oil. You want to hear that sizzle when you start to put it in the pan. That's when you know it's hot and it's going to start to sear the burger. We're also going to do these in batches. You don't want to overcrowd the pan, then you're not going to get that nice sear on the bottom of the burger, which you want. All right, I'm going to do about 4 burgers in my pan per batch. Perfect. I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit. I'm going to let this sit for a second. I'm just going to wash my hands. Alright, so you can now hear it. It's sizzling. It's starting to cook, which is great. And once you want to cook it about 3 minutes on each side, just until it starts to turn that golden brown color that we want. And you'll flip it over and cook it for about a minute. We're looking for an internal temperature of 145 for your burgers. You don't want to overcook them because then they become super dry and you wonder what you did to the burger. It's probably because you overcooked it. So again, 145, this is starting to smell. Turn on my fan here. Perfect, just what we want, that golden brown. Bring it over so you can see that golden brown color. That's exactly what you're looking for. Let it cook for another about minute on this side, and then you should be good to remove them and we'll finish them in the oven. I'm going to keep one just so I can show you the plating of it and what I'm going to do, so you can see that. And you can tell the doneness of the burgers. I use my palm, right? So I kind of like loosely hold my palm like this. Loose is raw, a little bit more is medium, and then fully grasping as well. So you want to look for kind of a medium, right? So it gives a little bit of pushback. So we're not quite there yet, which is fine because I want to finish it with the oven. Same suit, you're going to let it cook for about 3 minutes on each side. On one side and then about 2 minutes on the other. Just going to turn it down because the oil is smoking a little bit. It looks so good. Alright, and that's it. So now we're going to finish them in the oven until they reach an internal temperature of 145.